All right. So welcome. This episode of Carrot Talk is going to be about the journey of art. I went with a title that kind of aimed towards artists who are struggling with the process of learning art and like being okay with their own art and, you know, realize everything about the process. And it's just, there's so much happening that there's a lot of maybe misconceptions or confusions or something. And that can kind of lead to weird expectations. And then, you know, when things don't follow through, you might just get a bit lost or frustrated with yourself. If any of this sounds familiar, hopefully this video will help out because I've heard a lot of people kind of, you know, sometimes they're hard on themselves or they're, you know, they don't like what they're doing. And it's difficult to keep going when you're like in that mode. And I get that. Art is very emotional, you know, not in the abstract painterly, you know, I feel the art. I mean, sure, if you're into that, then it is. But even sitting down and doing something with your hands that's creative is an emotional process. Even if something's throwing you off that day, it's very difficult to want to pick up the pencil and just kind of get down to it. But you know, if you really want to go into art, it's going to be important for you to be able to figure this out. And I wanted to start this video by saying that some people believe that the better you are, the more this is going to go away. And I just have to, like, really accentuate that that's not the case. I know a ton of really good artists who actually still have these same issues where they feel like they're struggling in their art. They're not happy with what they're doing. The process isn't as fun for them, you know? And I look at someone like me or some of my other friends and we're like, oh, we gotta draw a fucking, you know, toilet paper roll for a study? Sure, like that sounds great, you know, like whatever. And it's not because we know how to draw and it's not because we're good. It's the opposite. It's like all the stuff that we don't realize about the toilet paper, everything we're learning new is like, wow, this is fucking cool, you know? So please, like, realize that getting better is not going to change this. So you have to realize that what is actually happening is it starts with you, right? It's in your head. And this first section is going to be going about that, or talking about that. So again, this thing's called The Journey of Art. I don't actually have any visuals for this because I'm not going to be drawing anything because there's a lot of complex stuff. It's a lot of psychology, which, full disclosure, I'm not a psychologist, but all the stuff I'm going to be describing is through my own experiences, kind of layman examples that I think a lot of people could relate to and agree with. And hopefully my ideas can be translated through that and at the very least shine some new perspective on maybe how you're thinking and how you're going about art. That's the main point of all this. The way I see all confrontations in real life is that if there's a confrontation at all, you know, it sparks as like, oh, this is bad. Fuck, you know. But the more you understand everything, the more you know, come to terms with everything at play, the more you kind of like accept it, right? And you're like, I understand why this person was such an asshole. They had a really bad day. Like, oh shit, I've had that bad. You know, oh, they lost their job. I've lost my job before. That's terrible, you know? It's a lot easier to come to terms with stuff and be okay with things and just move forward and not be so in your head and dwelling and festering on stuff the more you understand things. So that's all what we're going to be talking about. This is going to be a way more conceptual heavy talk than that first one. Like, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of stuff that I really love to talk about because I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's so fucking fun and it's so real because like everyone goes through this shit and it's just really cool. We're going to move on to Act 1 of this video. I'm an artist. See, I classify things by acts, whatever, I'm dumb. It's a 3-act structure, so that doesn't necessarily mean 3 videos. I have no idea how long this is going to be. A lot of these concepts are pretty in-depth, you know, this is the intro video, right, and it's probably already several minutes because I'm dumb, but this next section is self-reflection and introspection. It's before the art stuff. This is not even talking about art yet. We're entirely talking about you and your head, right? The brain is a incredibly powerful double-edged sword. It's strong, it's OP, it's great, but if you don't know what's going on with it, it's going to take you for a ride. It's your brain, you know, it's you. It has a lot of defense mechanisms that'll make you believe whatever the fuck it wants to or you want to, and then it'll just do whatever it does. And so a lot of this earlier concept stuff is going to be talking about a little bit on how to train your brain. Again, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any, or I'm staying away from scientific, like, stuff like that, just in case, maybe sometimes people are like, I don't believe in that or whatever, but like, I just want to stick with layman examples and stuff that we could all relate to, and hopefully I can communicate my ideas through that. So the first thing I want to talk about, it's the first problem everyone runs into when they're drawing or studying or trying to learn something, is frustration, right? And frustration, we've all been there, we know what it is. It's like, what the fuck, I can't do this. Why can't I do this, right? That's frustration. And I want to talk, like, what is frustration? What does it mean? Why does it happen, right? I did research on that, and it pretty much said what I thought. And it's basically when your expectations are not met, right? So you start expecting something, you want something, and you can't get it, right? We could think about like a kid at a candy store, and then the kid's like, I want this candy, and the parents are like, no, dude. And then they're like, well, fucking want it. And they're like, no, dude, you're a kid. No, and the kid's like, what the hell? And then he gets mad, right? He's frustrated. He wants it. Your kid's probably not cussing. Maybe he is. Bad kid, but, whatever. That's concept, that perspective, that scenario. That is a lot of what frustration is at its core, I'm bringing this up. It sounds basic, but like, keep in mind that frustration only happens because we expect something that doesn't even have to be reasonable, and that I'll be getting into very soon. But by that I mean, like, that kid wanted candy, it's right fucking there, but he can't. Like, maybe he just got candy, we don't even know what the whole pre-concept with the kid is, but like, he can't get it, and maybe he's diabetic, maybe he can't touch candy, maybe he'll die, but he wanted it and he can't get it. That's the point, right? That's frustration. And so, but I wanted to talk about how we don't get frustrated. Like, say you wanted to fucking fly, right? If I told you to, jump and try to fly, you're probably not going to get frustrated when that doesn't happen, right? You're going to jump, you're going to fall, and you're going to be like, yeah, of course I can't fly, duh, right? So it's not like this doesn't happen all the time, You realize that you have a time and a place, and that there's a situation when you think you can get something, and then if you can't do it, that's when the frustration happens. So we'll be talking about why that's a little bit presumptuous in a sec, but I want to kind of, keep going down my list here. So again, frustration is the core of it all. Frustration happens because of expectations, and with knowing these two, I think is going to help kind of figure out a bit more about channeling your own emotions, right? When you have to do something that you know that you can't do, you don't really get frustrated, but you might also like give up or something, right? That's also, if I told you to fly, you're going to be like, no, I can't. It's straight up impossible, right? That could be the same thing with art. Draw something. No, I can't. It's straight up impossible. How many times have you heard that, right? How many times have you said that? So that's also a thing. Like, you have to realize that your expectations, and how you interpret these are going to dictate how your emotions are. The next part kind of gets into talking about like how to channel any of that, how to kind of go about not necessarily fixing, but like just shifting your perspective, changing the paradigm, right? So I love the term mental fortitude, right? And what it basically means is training your brain to be able to like be okay with stuff. Have you ever had that friend who like hears a song play and it's not a good song, and they're like, oh, I hate this song, and they're going insane, like it's the fucking end of the world just because it's a bad song? It could be like a really bad, or like a really bad movie, and they'll just like, I'm leaving, I'm turning this movie off. If they're doing that, or if they're getting mad at like a supermarket, if they're really triggered easily like that, anything, I would say that's kind of weak mental fortitude, right? Now, I'm not saying, oh, you're weak, whatever. Obviously, we all have our own, like, super strong triggers or whatever, and, shit's gonna happen, for sure. But in general, it's a good skill to be able to put up with the shit that you have to do, or even the shit that you want to do, but maybe just for whatever reason, you're kind of struggling, right? I call that mental fortitude, and I like to train that up in fun ways, like talking about stupid shit that most people won't, or going through that whole entire fucking bad song that you're like, like, okay, whatever, it's fine, maybe I'll even get it stuck in my head. Watch those bad movies, if there's a point, if it feels like a waste of time, you're literally like, man, I could be doing something else now. Then, like, yeah, I get that, time is precious, but at the same time, it's good to be able to handle stuff. So, like, and this stuff goes into whatever. If you could deal with all this dumb stuff, then you could deal with other things too, because you can. You're like, oh, this food's not great, but it's healthy. so I'll just keep eating this. Like, oh, I don't like eating the same thing because it gets boring, but like this routine actually helps me in a lot of different ways, so maybe I do have to keep it up. I don't like working out because it takes too much time, but there's a lot of like benefits to it, so I really should put the pedal to the metal or something. So it's like mental fortitude is a skill, a muscle. Discipline is probably another good word for it, but mental fortitude is just, I don't know, it's funner in my opinion. But I guess when it comes to discipline, that kind of seems to go a bit more like toward work, whereas mental fortitude kind of sounds like perseverance, or just like fortitude versus discipline would be different characteristics. But they're similar, there's some overlapping. But yeah, so like that's kind of my point. And to kind of like continue to hash on this, with mental fortitude comes being able to zoom out and look at things in a different perspective, right? I mentioned this because it's super good to be able to get out of your head for a little bit. You know, if we're too zoomed in, we're going to be really sensitive to whatever's, you know, not cool with us. You just go into your autopilot mode of like, this stuff's happening to me and life sucks because it's happening to me, you know, like that's not good. It's really good to be able to zoom out and just like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'd like to be, or like, you know, what is me now? You know, like, where am I right now? Is this what I want? Like, what am I going to have to do? Like, how bad do I want this sort of thing? Like, taking these checks on yourself. If you haven't done this in a long time, like, I really suggest doing this at least every, like, fucking several months, you know? Like, it's really good to just take tabs on yourself. I do it, like, every other day, you know? It's just, you want to know what you are, what you're feeling, but not being on autopilot. Being able to zoom out and, like, look at your life and being like, okay, you know, is this really bad? Perspective is another thing that really changes stuff, you know? I've had a ton of friends who like, you know, I had a bad day at work, blah, 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 everything's shit, blah, blah, blah. And like, by all means, I'm sure it is. And if a problem is bad to you mentally, it's going to affect you for reals, you know, no matter how small it is. But I think that's where perspective's even more helpful, because it's very important to realize and put your feet in another person's shoes. Yeah, you know, of people with like way worse problems, you know? I'm not saying to like minimize your own problems, but just like consider living in those problems, and then your problems start to seem a little less bad, you know? And for the most part, I'm talking about like, oh, you maybe had a shitty day at work, but then you like consider, oh, people are like starving in the streets, or like, oh man, homeless people in that polar vortex are getting super, you know, frozen, you know, like that's real shit, you know, that sucks, you know. Not to say that anyone's actual day-to-day struggles aren't real. Obviously you could have tons of stuff, from whatever emotional stuff to just being locked with jobs or whatever. All that stuff can compound, and by all means, like, your problems can be real for sure, but just like definitely keep perspective in mind. It keeps you humble, you know. You might have things bad, but if you know that like, this guy has it even worse, you know, like, damn, like that would suck even more than fucking what I got. So I still have time, you know, I can do stuff, you know? I think it's a humbling process, and I think it's really important to just kind of keep you grounded and, again, zoomed out, you know? One of the fun things I like to do, and this is kind of anecdotal and probably doesn't matter at all, but I wonder if it helped me be able to be so zoomed out for the most part. I'm pretty fucking zoomed out, big picture, almost all the time. And I would almost blame this on video games, right? Because, like, you know how in a video game when you, like, pause and you could go, like, look at your status, and you're like, oh, I've got 34 hit points, you know? Like, I used to do that all the time as a kid because I just thought it was cool. I like life as a video game sort of thing. It just was fun, you know? And so occasionally, even now, I'll be like, how much, like, what's my energy at right now? You know, if I had, like, 20 hearts, like Zelda style, how many hearts would I have right now, energy-wise? And I'll be like, you know, I'm pretty out of it today. Maybe, like, 12 or some shit, you know, like 12, whatever. You know, it's just fun. It's fun to, like, kind of think about stuff that way. But it also kind of, like, put stuff in a perspective again. You're zoomed out. You're not in your head. You're looking at it from an outside view. And it's just, things register different when you kind of give it that time. You know, you look at the frustration or anything. Yeah, bring this back to art, right? You look at your art or the process of it, and then you kind of realize like, oh, I'm learning, and this is the learning process. This is okay. This is all a part of it, you know? Like, I'm here in the learning process, and it's huge. The learning process is giant, and that's fine. Everything's okay here, right? And looking at yourself as just like there doing the thing because that's like kind of your role, and then you're going to do it, and then cool, you'll have done it. it helps for me, you know. Again, this is all about just self-reflection and introspection and getting out of your own head, because that's going to be the biggest opponent, right? So yeah, this first part is laying the ground rules and the tools for the next couple sections. This first part was about you. The second part's about art. The third part is going to be about both art and you.